Welcome back to Life with Dr. Trish. On this channel, I focus on discovery, life, and inspiration. I have done several videos about ancestry and DNA reveals. If you enjoy those type of videos, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell to be notified when I post new videos. Okay, so last month I interviewed Christine Jacobson, who found out at the age of 65, after being raised white, that her father was black. Go check out that video if you missed it, and don't forget to order Christine's book, Dancing Around the Truth, from Amazon if you're interested in more about her story. In today's episode, I'm going to present Verda Bird's story. Verda was adopted and raised by a black family and lived her entire life believing she was black. At the age of 70, however, Verda discovered her birth parents were listed as white on her original birth certificate. Miss Byrd is the author of 70 Years of Blackness. I have not read her book yet, but I did order it from Amazon. It's supposed to arrive from Amazon by next Saturday. If you would like to read her book along with me and then discuss it together, then don't forget to order your copy too. Leave me a comment and let me know if you plan to do that. I think what I would like to do is to have an upcoming episode where we talk about Christine's book, Dancing Around the Truth, and Verda's book, 70 Years of Blackness, together. I think there are similarities to be found in both stories that would make an interesting discussion. So hey, life friends, don't be shy if you're interested. I think it will be fun. We can hang out online together, drink some tea or coffee or whatever your beverage of choice is, and talk about some things. This includes you too, men. I think we could have a fuller discussion if there are various perspectives included in the conversation. So let's talk about Verda's background. Verda was born in 1942 in Missouri. Her birth name was Jeanette. Her birth certificate shows her birth parents as Daisy and Earl Beagle. Her birth parents were economically challenged. They had 5 children, and Earl decided to leave the family when Verda was just 5 months old. Some have speculated that the reason Earl decided to leave the family is because that's when he realized Verda, who was then known as Jeanette, was mixed race. Verda's mother, Daisy, was only 27 years old when Earl abandoned the family. It had to be incredibly difficult for Daisy as a young mother in the 1940s trying to raise 5 children alone. She needed to support her children, so she went out looking for work. Daisy had a work-related injury that left her critically injured and unable to work or support her children. Daisy's daughter, Catherine, said Daisy broke every bone in her body and spent a year in the hospital in a body cast. So as a result of that, all 5 of Daisy's children were taken by the state. This is where more questions are raised, though. When Daisy recovered from her injuries, 4 of her 5 children were returned to her. Verda, then known as Jeanette, did not go back to Daisy. The question becomes, why? Daisy obviously loved her children to do what was necessary to get any of them back. But why did she leave Verda in foster care? So Jeanette, whose name later changed to Verda, stayed in foster care until she was adopted by her black adoptive family as a small child. I read that she was adopted at age 5, but she was in foster care since the age of 2. Jeanette was adopted by Ray and Edwina Wagner. The couple changed Jeanette's name to Verda Ann Wagner. Verda was Ray and Edwina's only child. Verda has said that Ray and Edwina took very good care of her. Verda's adopted father, Ray, was a college-educated railroad porter, and her adoptive mother, Edwina, was a homemaker. Verda has said that her family really loved her, her parents took great care of her, and she really believes that if she had stayed in the custody of her birth parents, her life would have been very different. According to Verda, there were some accusations of infidelity in her birth parents' relationship. Verda is not for sure if her birth was a result of that. She did say that Daisy went on to marry 2 or 3 other men while she was still legally married to Earl. In previous interviews, Verda also said that she received information that her birth mother, Daisy, quote, might not have been the most upright mother, unquote. Earl Beagle was, however, listed as the father, at least on paper, for Daisy's initial 5 children, including Verda, who was then known as Jeanette. Verda was the youngest of Daisy's first set of children. She never got a chance to ask Daisy or Earl about their stories, as they had already passed away when Verda discovered her original birth certificate. So Daisy went on to marry a man named Oscar Pierce, and she had more children. Verda connected with some of her biological sisters in 2014. Her biological sisters' names are Sybil Panko, Debbie Romero, and Catherine Gutierrez. There was a large gap between Daisy's oldest kids and her young ones. Sybil was 20 years older than Debbie and Catherine. The story goes that Verda's reunion with her biological sisters did not go over well. Verda ended up accusing her sister Sybil of using the N-word. Allegedly, Sybil also did not want Verda to attend her funeral. Sybil passed away in 2016. Verda's biological sister Debbie, however, is noted as saying they were surprised to learn Verda had grown up black, but it didn't bother them, and they were just happy to find a lost sister. However, the other sisters did stop speaking to Verda, and as far as I was able to research, Verda is not in contact with any of her birth family. Her biological sister Debbie said their mother never told her about Verda. However, Verda's biological sister Catherine said their mother, Daisy, only mentioned Verda when Daisy was in her 60s, when she wondered how she was doing. Verda's biological mother, Daisy, died in 2002, so Verda never did meet her or get a chance to ask her any questions herself. Ms. Verda did say she was fully immersed in the black culture. Her adoptive black parents raised her as black. She went to a black church. Her mother took her to black hair salons. She grew up to marry a black man whom she has been married to for about 40 years now. Verda and her husband also have a daughter who always believed she was black. Verda's husband and daughter never questioned her identity or the fact that she was a black woman. Her husband said after he found out about his wife's birth family, it was like he went to bed with a black woman and woke up to a white woman. I think he jokingly said that though, because Verda has said many times that she had a great family, a great support system, and that no one ever questioned her identity. So even though other people never questioned whether or not Verda was black, once Verda discovered that her biological parents were listed as white, it did cause some questions about her own identity or how she viewed herself. Verda was left with questioning her identity and race after 7 decades of living. I can't even imagine. Looking at stories like this really brings into question what really makes us who we are. Is it our biological makeup, our connection with our birth parents and birth families? Is it our environment and the people who raised us? What does it really mean to be black or white? If you are a white person who believed your whole life that you were black, should the way you identify change? What about if you were a black person raised white? There's a Netflix movie coming out on Wednesday, November 10th called Passing. Have you heard about it? It's about 2 black women in the 1920s who grew up as friends. One of them has decided to pass for white. I'm going to be checking it out. If you plan to watch it too, come back and let me know what you thought about it. It really fits with the discussion of the one drop rule that we have talked about a few times in the comments. While we are on that topic, let me just mention it here, my thoughts on that. No, I do not follow the one drop rule. I don't believe a person has to claim to be black based upon having 1 drop of African blood. However, at the same time, I don't believe anyone should deny a person's right to identify however they choose. Who are we to tell someone who they should be? Like a lot of people try to point out anyway, race is a social construct. I do believe we as Black Americans have established a unique culture for ourselves, and you can be raised to identify with that culture. Everyone seems to have an opinion on how someone should identify racially or culturally. People really get ticked off if they see someone not conforming to how they want to label them. I've thought about this a lot, especially since sharing my family's ancestry journey on YouTube. I get just as many comments stating, "You are black, quit trying to be something else," as I do, "You are not black, you are mixed, and you shouldn't try to call yourself black." Honestly, I was initially surprised by the responses. Let me first start off by saying I have always proudly identified as black. Just like Ms. Verda, I was immersed in the black culture. I grew up in a black neighborhood, meaning all my neighbors looked like me. I have firsthand experiences about issues that affect black people. My parents have never claimed to be anything other than black, and the family I am raising now has not claimed to be anything other than black. It doesn't matter to us that our DNA admixtures show 25% or more European ancestry. That doesn't change how we see ourselves. However, I am glad to know information about our history. It doesn't bother me how someone else wants to identify. If you want to identify as black, great. If you want to identify as mixed, awesome. If you want to identify as white, I am not bothered. Everyone doesn't seem to think like that, though. As an analytical psychologist, I have meditated on why that is. It seems everyone responds based on their own experiences with the issue. You would be surprised the number of full-grown black men and women who try to criticize my 6-year-old redhead daughter because they said she looks mixed and we don't have a right to call her black. I've seen some really nasty comments. I typically don't approve nasty comments unless I want to publicly address them for everyone to see, using it as a learning opportunity. I think people get triggered by their past experiences. If they felt someone made them feel less attractive or less important because of their features, then they are more likely to react harshly when they think someone is elevating features that don't look like their own. For instance, if they felt like red hair was being praised and it triggered their past thoughts of feeling insignificant, then they may be more likely to lash out. Likewise, if someone feels attacked by others for identifying more as mixed or white than black, then they feel you should identify as mixed or white as well, because that will justify their thoughts or feelings. If they see you identify as something else, then they feel threatened, because that means maybe their identity will be questioned as well. Protecting ourselves is human nature. If we feel something someone else is doing or claiming threatens us in some way, it may trigger an intense or emotional reaction. Humans still very much have the flight or fight behavior. When it comes to expressing identity, our flight versus fight behavior may cause some people to want to identify however others want them to, i.e., flight, while it may make others stand their ground and criticize anyone who threatens their identity, fight. I've seen these reactions in response to Christine's story and in response to Verda's story. Many people say Christine is white because she looks white and she was raised white, and thus she should claim nothing else but white. People's responses to how they think Christine should identify are solely based on their experiences and view of the world. Does that make them right or wrong? No, but it does make their opinions very subjective. Likewise, many people responded to Verda's story by saying she looks black, she was raised black, she acts black, so she has to be black. This is needed in order for them to continue to understand the world as they know it. Considering another option could possibly shake their world to the point that they may lose stability. I imagine to a certain extent that may be how Christine and Verda felt when their lifelong identities were challenged by new realities. What do y'all think about these very similar stories? We have two women who were born during a time when what we know as black and white may have been different than what we consider as black and white or mixed now. Some may argue that it has changed a lot, and some may argue that not much of anything has changed. Christine was raised by white parents and then discovered her father was known to be black. Verda was raised by black parents and then discovered her birth parents were listed as white. Technically, according to how mixed race is currently considered, there can be an argument that both women are mixed race. Verda's parents are listed as white on her birth certificate, but we know that old saying, mama's baby, daddy's maybe. Miss Verda looks like a lot of older light-skinned black women that I know. My thought is initially her biological mother and her husband took Verda home, because you can't always tell if a baby is white or mixed race at birth. It can take a few months before the color comes in. I'm only speculating, but Earl may have left when Verda was 5 months old because he noticed she started looking different than the other kids. Daisy probably realized then that Verda was biracial, but I'm guessing she had a hard time giving her baby up, as she had time to bond with her by that time. My guess is when all the kids were put into foster care, someone recognized that Verda was biracial and probably suggested to Daisy that the baby would be better off with a black family. Remember, this was 1943. It would have been very difficult for a young single white woman with multiple children to also raise a biracial child. The community may not have received that very well. I believe Daisy signed Verda, then known as Jeanette, over for adoption. According to Verda's biological sisters, we know that Daisy did think about Verda even when she was up in age. She obviously never forgot about the baby she gave up. It would be interesting if Miss Verda would take an ancestry DNA test. I think if she did, she would probably find some African there. In any case, I think everyone has the right to racially identify however they choose. If Verda wants to believe that both of her biological parents were white, I don't have a problem with that. Likewise, if Christine wants to identify as mixed race or something else, even after growing up white and looking white, I don't have a problem with that either. Everyone has the right to be whom they want to be, and they also have a right to discover anything they want to in their ancestry. What are your thoughts? Leave a comment and let me know. Remember though, this is a no negativity zone. Please keep your comments respectful. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you would like to see more videos like this. I will be interviewing 2 people with 2 different ancestry stories soon. Through Ancestry DNA, I discovered one of them is my 3rd cousin. She was placed for adoption, and discovering her birth parents has been a big mystery. You don't want to miss the stories coming up, so hit the notification bell to be notified when I post new videos. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon.